My name is Bella. I'm 28, living in a small apartment in San Diego that I bought myself after years of relentless hard work. I work as a marketing manager for a tech company. Nothing glamorous, but enough to support myself and feel proud every time I hold my own house key. I still remember that Saturday afternoon clearly. The sun was soft and golden, and I was just about to make coffee when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw Emily, my younger sister, standing there with a worn-out backpack and a look that was both excited and oddly intense. Emily is 23 now, still living with our parents in Santa Clarita. She's never really made an effort to hold down a job. Every time I asked, she'd say things like, "I'm still figuring out what I love," or, "It'll all fall into place eventually." So when she suddenly showed up at my door, I was caught off guard. "Your place is so cute, Bella," she said as she walked in, her eyes sweeping over my tiny kitchen. Her fingers brushed the countertop like she was inspecting the wood. This kind of space, waking up and making coffee, must feel so peaceful. I laughed. Peaceful, sure, but it took me 6 years just to afford the down payment for this kind of peace. Emily turned to me, eyes already welling with tears. "I can't take it anymore, Bella. Living with Mom and Dad is suffocating. They control everything, what I wear, when I go to bed. I need to break free. I need to be independent." I nearly choked on my coffee. If anyone had ever been the loudest critic of moving out, it was Emily. The same girl who once declared, "Why move out when there's food, laundry, and no rent at home?" "What exactly are you saying?" I asked, still unsure I was hearing her right. She pulled out a thin book from her backpack and waved it in front of me. "I just finished this, Breaking the Codependent Cycle. Dr. Danner says if I don't separate now, I'll always be a watered-down version of myself." I frowned. "And you came here to—" Emily took a deep breath, like she was gathering all her courage. "Can you help me? Just 3 months' rent, I swear. I'll get a job right away and won't ask for anything else. I want to be like you, Bella. Stand on my own." I stared at her for a long time. Maybe it was the way she said "like you" that hit me. Or maybe I'd just waited so long to see her want to grow up. Either way, I nodded. 3 months, but you have to be serious. Got it?" Her squeal was so loud I flinched. She threw her arms around me so hard I nearly toppled over. "You won't regret this. You're the best sister in the whole world." I smiled, but somewhere inside, a tiny voice whispered caution. With Emily, everything could turn upside down in the blink of an eye. 2 days later, I was in the middle of work when my phone rang. Emily's name lit up the screen, and her voice was practically buzzing with excitement. "Bella, I found it! My dream apartment. It has a balcony, an on-site gym, a 24/7 concierge, and a rooftop pool." I paused. "Wait, what?" "It's in Avalon Hill. You know the area, right? Super safe, near downtown. And I just found a studio available." Avalon Hill, one of the most high-end complexes in the San Diego area. I took a deep breath, opened my laptop, and typed in the address. The rent made my eyes widen. $2,750 a month. "Emily, are you serious? You think I can drop over 8 grand just to get you started in a luxury suite? And it has a private elevator and a lobby with a grand piano? You don't get it. If I start somewhere nice, I'll be more motivated. And you said you'd help me." I gripped the phone tighter. "I said I'd cover the first 3 months, yes, to help you become independent, not to fund your personal spa retreat." She chuckled awkwardly. Okay. Maybe I got a little too excited. I'll look for something else." That afternoon, I emailed her a list of more realistic options. Small studio apartments in Linda Vista, priced around $1,200. Affordable and close to businesses hiring entry-level staff. That evening, she called back. Her tone was noticeably less enthusiastic. "Are you sure about these places? They look kinda basic." They're not five-star hotels, but they're clean, safe, and enough to get you started. If you're serious about being on your own, this is the way. She was quiet for a beat, then said softly, "All right, I'll check them out." A few days later, I took a morning off work to tour a place with her. The agent, Cheryl, was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with a warm smile. She walked us through each room like she was selling a penthouse. The apartment was simple but pleasant: freshly painted white walls, clean laminate floors, a compact kitchen with a microwave, electric stove, and fridge. Sunlight poured in through the window, with eucalyptus trees swaying outside. I liked it immediately. Emily, not so much. Despite forcing a smile, she couldn't hide the flicker of disappointment. "It's fine. I guess I'll just have to adjust." I ignored the subtle grimace. When Cheryl asked, I didn't hesitate. I wrote 2 checks, one for the deposit, one for the first 3 months. Emily signed the lease with a fast hand, though her fingers trembled slightly. As I watched her, I felt a strange blend of hope and unease. Was she truly ready? Outside the leasing office, she squeezed my hand. "Thank you, really. I won't let you down." I nodded, managing a faint smile. "I hope not." On move-in day, I drove her and a few small boxes to the new place. She stood in the doorway, looking at the empty room. No coffee machine, no soft couch. But I guess we're going minimalist now, huh? I smiled. I started in a space even smaller than this. What matters is, it's yours. I handed her the key, silently hoping this would truly be a turning point. She hugged me again. "You're my guardian angel, you know that?" I didn't respond, just gave her hand a small squeeze and turned away. But as I got into the car, I glanced one last time through the rearview mirror and saw Emily, standing in the middle of the apartment, phone held high, smiling for a selfie in the slanted sunlight, as if she were about to type some inspiring caption. I wanted to believe it was just her way of starting a new chapter, but a small part of me, a very small part, had already started to grow cautious. About 3 weeks after Emily moved in, I started noticing something odd. Every time I asked about her job search, she either dodged the question or gave vague excuses. "Don't worry, I'm looking at a few places, but hiring's super slow right now. It's the market," she said during a FaceTime call, lounging on her bed with a steaming mug of tea and soft jazz playing in the background. "I sent you a list of companies hiring for front desk, retail, barista roles. Have you contacted any of them?" I asked directly. Emily yawned. "Those jobs don't pay enough to survive in San Diego. I'm eyeing more creative positions, like community manager or event assistant." I stared at the screen. "But you don't have any experience, and right now, you're living off someone else's money. You need any job. Chase the creative stuff later." She clicked her tongue. "Whatever, I'll figure it out. Can you not push me so hard?" I swallowed my frustration and ended the call in silence. By the start of the 3rd month, I sent Emily a reminder. "Only 2 weeks left of the 3 months. Have you found a job yet?" She saw it. No reply. 2 days later, I got an automatic email alert from the bank. Emily D. Roberts had requested a transfer of $1,290 with the note, "April rent." I froze. Called her, no answer. Texted, nothing. That afternoon, she finally called back, her tone light, like nothing had happened. "Oh, you saw the payment request? Oops, I meant to tell you to send it by Friday." "You? Think I'm just gonna keep paying?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Well, the 3 months flew by, and I haven't found anything solid yet. I've got an interview coming up soon. I just need a little more time." "No, Emily. I've fulfilled my part. From now on, it's on you." A pause. Then her voice cracked. "So you're just going to abandon me? You know I'm not ready. I'm trying my best, but all you care about is money." I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, the line went dead. Not even an hour later, my phone rang again. This time, Mom. Bella Lynn Roberts. Her voice blasted through like I'd committed a crime. Emily called me in tears. "You really going to let your sister get kicked out on the street?" "Mom, I've already spent over $3,000. I'm not a walking ATM. You're her big sister. You have a good job, your own place. She's just starting out. You should be the one lifting her up." I stopped walking. My chest tightened. "Mom, this isn't helping. It's enabling. I've said that already." "So you're okay seeing her homeless? How am I supposed to sleep at night knowing my daughter is on the sidewalk?" I bit my lip. Mom always knew exactly how to twist the guilt. And like being pulled back into an all-too-familiar pit, I sighed and said heavily, "I'll cover another 3 months. But this is the last time." Silence. Then softer. "I knew you'd do the right thing." After the call, I made the transfer, feeling more drained than relieved. I texted Emily, "Rent covered. Last 3 months. That's it." Her reply came in less than a minute, a smiling emoji with a halo. I dropped my phone and leaned back on the couch, hollow inside. Maybe I'd just made the same mistake again. About 2 weeks later, on a restless late night, I picked up my phone and started scrolling mindlessly through Instagram, something I rarely did. Then her handle popped up. Emily Dream Free. I hesitated, then tapped, and instantly my blood ran cold. There she was, standing against the apartment's glass window, the city lights glowing behind her. She wore a deep V-cut sapphire silk dress, bold red lipstick, wine glass in hand. The caption read, "Freedom is a luxury, and I dared to choose it." I scrolled. Next photo, Emily at a rooftop cafe, eyes closed in soft focus. Caption, "To live fully, start with beautiful surroundings." Another photo, her posing beside a dinner table styled like a magazine spread. Candles, flowers, expensive Italian food. Not a single post about job hunting, resumes, or interviews. Anger churned inside me, but I waited. Maybe, just maybe, she was putting on a front. Then I saw her story, tagged, "Thank you, Verena Boutique, for helping me pick the perfect dress for last night." I couldn't hold back. I typed, "Have you gone to any interviews yet?" 15 minutes later, she sent back a screenshot of an email. "An interview invitation from a startup called North Edge Media, scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow." I exhaled. Maybe she was finally taking this seriously. But not 5 minutes later, my phone rang. "Bella," Emily's voice chirped, suspiciously cheerful. "I've got great news. I got an interview. But I really need your help with something important." I closed my eyes. What now? I don't have anything appropriate to wear. First impressions matter, you know that. I need to do my hair, light makeup, and get a proper outfit. I texted, "About $800 should cover it. Will you help me? I'll pay you back as soon as I get my first paycheck." I froze. $800? I know it's a bit much, but this is real, Bella. It's my first big opportunity. If I show up looking professional, I can make a great impression from the second I walk in. I read online that interviewers form opinions within the first 7 seconds. I sat motionless in front of my screen, thoughts spinning. I knew I was being manipulated, but that voice, so eager, so desperate, still sounded like the little sister I once carried on my hip when she was 3. "You've reached the end of my generosity," I said, my voice sharp, almost brittle in the quiet. "You're the best sister ever," she shouted, then hung up as fast as she'd called. I made the transfer, my heart heavy. 2 days later, during my lunch break at work, I called Emily. "How'd the interview go?" There was a pause, then a giggle. "Oh, that? I went, but the company was tiny, no real growth potential. The role was super boring. I died doing something like that. I need something more creative?" "You turned it down? After I just sent you $800 for your career?" "Well, you wanted me to go, right? I went." Didn't like it. What's the problem? My jaw dropped as I searched for words, but before I could say anything, she cut in. I'm busy. Talk later, love you. I gripped my phone. A part of me wanted to drive straight to that apartment, pound on the door, and say everything I'd kept in for months. And then, as if pulled by instinct, I opened Instagram. The latest photos stopped my breath. Emily, in a shimmering evening gown, stood in the middle of a golden-lit living room, holding up a glass of champagne. The caption read, "Life isn't about waiting for opportunities, it's about dressing like you already have them." I stared at the photo. That dress? I paid for it. And there was never an interview. On Wednesday night, I left the office late after a long meeting. A light drizzle fell, and the streetlights cast an amber glow on the wet pavement. I had planned to go home, take a hot shower, and forget Emily for the evening. But something pulled me off course. I turned the wheel and headed straight to the apartment I was still paying for, the one where my sister lived like royalty. As I approached the building, I could hear the music thumping from a distance. The third floor, her floor, glowed like a mini wedding party. Laughter, clinking glasses, bass-heavy remix tracks. I stopped in the hallway. I still had the spare key. My fingers tightened around it. I didn't want drama. But this time, I needed to see it for myself. I turned the key quietly. Inside, the apartment had turned into a nightclub. Dim lights, bodies packed together, silver trays piled with food and drinks. Faces I recognized from Emily's Instagram lounged on the couch, laughing and sipping wine. At the center of it all, Emily, in that same silver dress I paid for, was spinning, laughing brightly, surrounded by her friends. My eyes locked on her as she lifted her glass and raised a hand for silence. "You guys want to know how I'm still chillin' mid-month without a job?" she said with a playful flip of her hair. "It's because I've got Bella, my guardian angel." The room erupted in laughter. Emily continued, totally unfazed. "She's adorable, really. All I have to do is cry a little, make up a fake interview, toss in some line about wanting independence, and boom. Money wired in no time." A snicker rose from the corner. Emily shrugged, lifting her glass. "You know what we call her? Our personal ATM cow." More laughter. Loud, open, shameless. I stood frozen behind the slightly open door. My eyes burned. My heart didn't race, it just went still. Hollow. "Honestly," she added, swaying a bit with the wine, "I don't even need a job. As long as she still feels guilty about her struggling little sister, I get to live like a queen. And if she ever snaps out of it, I'll just call Mom. They'll handle the rest." That's when I stepped inside. My heels hit the wooden floor. Steady, slow, shh. The room fell dead silent, like someone had cut the power. One of Emily's friends spotted me first, their face turning pale as they nudged the person next to them. Whispers rippled like a wave. Emily froze mid-tut. Her face drained of color. The wineglass slipped from her hand and shattered. I walked into the center of the room, stopping right in front of her. No one breathed. "This is your version of independence," I said, voice calm but each word slicing the air. "A perfect little performance, isn't it, Emily?" What are you doing here?" Her voice trembled. I didn't answer. I looked around the room. "You all heard everything. I don't need to explain." Emily's lips twitched like she wanted to defend herself, but this time, I didn't let her speak. "You can't fool me anymore, and if you think you can use Mom and Dad to pressure me again—" I paused, my gaze sharp. "Then you'd better get used to living on their dime. Starting tomorrow." Then I turned and walked out of the apartment the same way I had entered. No shouting, no tears. The door closed behind me. The music didn't start back up. The next morning, as I stepped out of a meeting room, my phone buzzed nonstop. Mom calling. I knew exactly what was waiting on the other end. I took a deep breath and picked up. "Bella Lynn Roberts," my mother's voice was like a knife. "Can you come to the house tonight? The family needs to talk." I looked out at the gray sky through the window. That old feeling came rushing back, like when I was a child and always the one called into the living room to apologize for something Emily had done. "I'm busy tonight," I replied. "Bella, don't make me say it again. 6 o'clock. The old house. Don't be late." At exactly 6 p.m., I walked into the house I'd grown up in, a place that now felt more foreign than ever. The living room light cast a sickly yellow glow. My parents were already seated on the couch like a panel of judges, and Emily, of course, sat between them, eyes red, hair messily tied up, wrapped in a worn gray sweater like she'd just survived a meltdown. "You're here," my mother said, eyes narrowing. "Sit down." I took the single chair across from them. No one said anything for a few seconds. Then my father erupted. "You know? Your mother and I can't believe you'd treat your sister this way. She almost got evicted." My mother cut in, her voice choked. "She called me sobbing. No money for food, no electricity, no one there for her." I looked straight at Emily. She was staring into her tea, hands clenched around the mug, tears at the ready, her shoulders trembling just enough to look pitiful. The performance was flawless. "I paid 6 months of rent," I said slowly, holding my composure, "plus money for clothes, salon visits, even the so-called interview. Do you two even know what she did with it?" My mother raised a hand to cut me off. "Bella, don't act like you haven't helped her." "Exactly. I helped. And was taken advantage of," I said, my voice tight. "I went to her apartment yesterday during a party with over 20 people. I stood there while she told the entire room that all she had to do was cry and say she wanted to be independent, and I'd send money. She called me her personal cash cow. Do you want to hear the recording?" Emily burst into tears. "She's making it up to justify abandoning me." I pulled out my phone, opened the recording I'd saved at the door. The laughter, the mockery, and the words "cash cow" rang out clearly. No one spoke. My mother's face went stiff, and my father looked like he'd been hit with cold water. But only seconds later, my mother returned to her usual tone. "He's young, Bella. Who hasn't said something stupid while drinking? You're the older one. You should show some grace. That's what family is for, forgiveness." I looked at my mother, the woman who had always twisted facts to protect Emily, no matter how wrong she was. "No, Mom," I stood up. "Family is not where one person swallows everything so others don't have to face the consequences." "You're pushing your own sister to the edge," my father snapped. "We raised you better than this cold-hearted nonsense." Emily lifted her head, her voice trembling right on cue. "You're not the only one who's tired, Bella. I'm struggling too, every single day." "No, you're not struggling," I cut her off, my eyes like steel. "You're playing the victim. The person paying the price is the one who still believes in you." I turned to my parents. "If you want to keep feeding the fantasy of poor, helpless Emily, go ahead, but I'm out." I walked out of the house, leaving behind my mother's pleading voice, the scrape of Dad's chair, and the familiar sobs of someone I once called sister. The door closed behind me. Not just a wooden door, but the door to a trust long since rotted. I drove away with trembling hands on the wheel. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. But the hollow ache in my chest was sharp and undeniable. That was the moment I knew I hadn't just ended a fight or responsibility, but a pattern of silent endurance that had gone on too long. That night, I turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear another word. Not from Emily, not from Mom, not from Dad. The next morning, I got to the office earlier than usual. I sat in front of my screen, working like a machine. Colleagues asked if I was okay. I just smiled faintly. I didn't tell anyone what had happened. A week passed. No calls. 2 weeks. No messages. By the 3rd week, I realized my family had officially cut me off. The first message came from my aunt, my mom's sister. She sent a nearly 1-minute voice recording, her tone full of frustration. Bella, what happened? Your mom's been crying non-stop. The whole family is talking. Your sister's out of work, lost power, living off instant noodles, and you just disappeared without a word? In their eyes, I was no longer the girl who had scraped together every penny to help her sister build a life. I was the selfish daughter, the successful but heartless sister, the one stellar student turned cold, unfeeling adult. They didn't know how many nights I stayed up worrying about Emily. They didn't see the quiet transfers. They weren't there when I stood in my sister's apartment and heard her laugh at my kindness in front of strangers. I didn't reply to my aunt's message, but a few days later, I saw Emily's photos on Facebook, perfectly lit, carefully framed, captions dripping in philosophy. Sometimes storms come just to show us who's really our shelter. Beneath were the usual comments from aunts and uncles. Don't be sad, sweetheart. Everyone finds the light. Family is something we should never let go of. Everyone makes mistakes. Your sister will come back to you soon. I sat still. No one realized the light they spoke of was from a party drenched in wine and club music, all paid for with my money. No one knew the storm was one Emily brewed herself. And if family is something we're never supposed to let go of, then I had held on far too long. My hands were bleeding. 3 months later, I received a single message from my father, short and sharp. If you still consider yourself part of this family, come to your mother's birthday next week. If not, that's your choice. I read that message over and over for half an hour. No check-in, no apology, just a cold directive wrapped like an ultimatum. I didn't respond, and I didn't go. That summer, I stopped receiving invitations to the annual family gathering. No one tagged me in group photos. My name never came up in their nostalgic stories. I had been erased, quietly, smoothly, without ceremony. And strangely enough, it didn't hurt the way I thought it would. That silence, for the first time, brought a kind of peace. Something I'd never known in my own family. I started spending more time on myself, learning to cook, enrolling in a morning yoga class, reconnecting with old friends. Life no longer revolved around midnight requests for cash or tear-filled calls about my struggling little sister. I was about to close my laptop after a long day when my phone vibrated. A name I thought I'd never see again lit up the screen. Mom. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Bella. My mother's voice trembled, strangely worn. It's bad. The landlord called the police on Emily's apartment. I said nothing. They showed up in the middle of another party, she continued, swallowing panic. But this time, it wasn't just the noise. They inspected the unit and found several pieces of furniture missing from the inventory. I froze. You mean, she sold the landlord's furniture? The leather chair, the dining table, the coffee machine, over $5,000 in total. The landlord made it clear, if we don't reimburse everything, they'll press charges for theft. I took a deep breath. I knew this was the moment I'd have to choose. The landlord's willing to settle privately, Mom rushed on, like she feared I'd hang up. If our family pays for the missing items and the lease termination fee, they won't involve a lawyer. How much? I asked, though deep down I already knew. Around $8,200, she said quietly, like whispering the number might soften it. Why are you calling me? Ella, we don't have enough. We already spent most of our retirement savings covering her rent these past few months. Could you… No, I cut in, for the first time in that call. Her voice cracked. You really have no love left for your family. I still love you, Mom, but I'm no longer blind. She began to sob on the other end. I stared at the white wall in front of me. I had thought the last time I said no would be the hardest. But no. It was now, when I knew my sister might finally face real consequences, that I understood what love truly meant. Do you know how many times I've been used? I said softly, each word hitting somewhere deep inside me. How many times I stayed silent because I didn't want to shatter the illusion of a perfect family? No answer. Just her heavy breathing and the ticking of a nearby clock. It's time Emily faces the consequences, not me. And I ended the call. 3 weeks later, I heard from Aunt Jackie, the only relative who still spoke to me. "Your sister was evicted," she said quickly. "The landlord kept the deposit, sold off what was left, and still came up short by more than $2,000. Your parents, they cashed out what remained of their retirement fund to cover it." I closed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt like a slow, quiet ache. Watching someone I once loved sink, even after I had thrown them every rope. "Where is Emily now?" I asked. "Back with your parents. Still not working, and—" Jackie paused, then added, "Still posting online, writing long captions about learning to love yourself on the path to healing." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because there was simply nothing left to say. That winter, I wasn't invited to the Christmas party. My name didn't appear in any of Mom's "thankful for my family" Facebook posts. I only heard from an old classmate that Bella's parents say she's basically a stranger now. I didn't respond. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because I finally understood. When someone constantly avoids consequences, the entire family gets pulled into that cycle. And if I didn't step out, I'd be dragged down, too. I'm no longer the one who quietly pays for the damage someone else creates. The last days of the year passed quietly. No midnight calls, no guilt-laced texts, no rushed dinners to make sure someone's rent was covered in time. My daily routine has become oddly simple. Morning coffee, afternoon work, reading at night. Sometimes I take quiet walks by the beach alone, hands in my coat pockets, letting the wind sweep through my hair like it's washing away years of weariness. No one asks if I'm still angry. No one wonders if I miss it. But maybe the biggest relief isn't the silence from others, it's the quiet within myself. As if, finally, a messy room has been closed off, and I've stepped out without looking back. Spring came later than usual that year in San Diego. The air still held the chill of post-rain wind, and the trees outside my new apartment shimmered faintly with dew. Every now and then, I'd hear whispers from distant relatives that I had abandoned my sister, turned my back on the family, or became someone who only thinks of herself. They said Emily was back at home with our parents, still unemployed. When I happened to see her name on social media, it was always the same image: a cup of coffee, an emotional quote, a distant gaze like she was mid-poem. My mother still texted on holidays, short, flat messages, like checking a box on a list. I never replied. Strangely, when people no longer need you, they begin to rewrite the story in the way that's most comfortable for them. In that version, I'm the one who walked away without a word. They're the ones who did their best. I didn't correct them. It wasn't worth it anymore. After all, the weight I once carried had long since fallen off, and I had no intention of picking it back up. That afternoon, I passed by the old boutique where I once bought a dress for Emily. In the display window was the same style of shimmery gown, the one I'd thought might mark her fresh start. As outside the store, a little girl tugged at her mother's hand, begging for a sparkly plastic bracelet. The mother smiled, leaned down, whispered something, and the girl beamed. I didn't hear what she said, but that moment softened something inside me. Turns out, not all love needs rescuing. Sometimes it just needs to stop enabling cruelty dressed as tears. I got home just as the sky turned violet. My apartment was small, warm, and quiet, except for the soft whistle of the kettle. I poured tea into a ceramic cup, set it on the wooden table by the window, and sat in my favorite wicker chair. The only sound was the steady ticking of the clock. Somewhere out there I may still be mentioned, with pity or anger. But here, where no one accuses me, where I no longer bear guilt for other people's mistakes, I feel closer to a kind of peace I once thought was imaginary. I don't need to be understood. I don't need to be forgiven. I just need to live by the one thing I no longer offer freely: self-respect. Bella's story is a powerful reminder that love doesn't always mean unconditional sacrifice. In real life, many are bound by family obligations so tightly that they forget their own boundaries. Family shouldn't be used as an excuse to exploit trust or avoid consequences. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no. Not out of cruelty, but because you've been hurt enough to know that real love never asks you to keep hurting yourself. What do you think of Bella's decision? Was she too harsh, or was it what she needed to reclaim herself? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about family and life.